think the first couple readings, as I was just listening to them, kind of trying to be open-minded, we're talking about being humble. The second one said, remember when you were called into the faith, not many of you were wise, not many of you were rich, not many of you were powerful. So when Paul went to Corinth and did his mission work there, and people were converting, they weren't the best of the best. They weren't the wise or the powerful or the rich. They were simple people. And so the readings today seem to be about simple, humble people. I remember when I was in seminary, because the readings really, if you look at the gospel, is about being happy. How many know that word blessed, beatitudo in the New Testament, means happy? So happy are the poor in spirit. Happy are those who mourn for their sins. Happy are the meek, and that sort of thing. So Jesus starts here, and St. Augustine tells us, he's like, why does Jesus start with happy? And he's like, because not everybody likes football, so you can't start with football. Not everybody likes spicy food, you know? You would think so, but not everybody likes biking or hiking or traveling or on and on and on. People like all kinds of different things. So what we like is just as varied as the people as there are in the world. But everybody wants to be happy. That's what St. Augustine tells us. That's why Jesus started his whole ministry by talking about being happy. I came to make you happy. This is how it works. Now, when I was in seminary, I started to tell you this story. One of my friends, Bob Liberty, God bless him, I think he's in heaven now, and he went, the year before I got there, his class, seminary class, went all the way down to Brazil to a town called Recife. You can look it up. In his mind, it was the poorest town in the whole world. All the people that they were ministering to there lived on a dump, and they spent their whole life on a dump, just picking through it, trying to find this or that to where they could eat that day or whatever. He said the kids played soccer all day long, if they weren't picking through the trash, played soccer all day long on the dump. He said, I got to tell you, he didn't get it. He said, these were the happiest kids by far I have ever seen in the whole world. And as seminarians, we travel all around the world. We go all over Europe, all over Mexico and South America and all that sort of thing. He said, these were the happiest kids I have ever seen, and they were the poorest kids I had ever seen. Isn't that an interesting thought? Today, our kids are so grumpy because they have everything. And it's like, why are you so depressed? You have everything in the world. When I was a kid, we used to think about robots. That was the new thing, robots. The Jetsons was the cartoon that was out. And we thought, wow, if we could just get robots to do everything for us. Remember the robot doing the vacuuming the floor in the Jetsons? If we could just get robots to do everything for us, we'd be the happiest people in the whole world. And there's been a study out in the news recently that said the standard of living for Americans has just drastically shot up over the last 25 years. And so has the preponderance of miserable people. People have never had a better standard of living, and they've never been more miserable. Those counterintuitively go together. And so Jesus starts with, I know you think having all these things will make you happy, and having the things isn't the problem, is it? Having money isn't a problem. It's really just thinking that those are the things that'll bring us happiness. When I was with Deacon Ken Thursday, just sitting at a table with him, we have what we call community lunch. Now, community lunch is geared for all the people around Burton and anyone who wants to travel who are like homeless, people who have nothing, people who could use a lunch, like our men's club guys. They're all there too. But other than that, they're all homeless. And we're sitting there, And I'm like, look at these guys. These are the happiest people I know. And really what I was talking about were the people who were putting the lunch on, the women who made the lunch and were serving it. I said, look how happy they are. That's the best ministry in the whole church, is just taking care of the poor in spirit. And I swear they are the happiest. If anyone competes with them, it's the outreach people. Those guys are just always just so happy in life. And so the things that make us happy surprise us. Cindy took on a new thing. I was looking at Jim over here. Lita's out of town. And so Cindy picked up Aunt Poppy. Aunt Poppy is the aunt of a friend of mine that I met at Starbucks. She lived in San Francisco at the time. But anyways, Aunt Poppy isn't Catholic or anything like that. We were not related to her. But Cindy has been going over and taking her out to lunch and taking her to Kroger to go shopping and just taking her out. And this lady is just so happy. And she's just so blessed that they're spending time together. It's like Cindy has a new best friend because Cindy is never happier than when she's taking Aunt Poppy out. I'm like, yeah, this is a beautiful ministry, Cindy. This might be your thing. Just taking little old ladies out who don't have a car and can't get out otherwise. And I think she probably agrees because she used to do that with her mom. And she remembers the good times she had doing that with her mom. But I haven't gotten to my homily yet, which is a problem because the Pope came out, as he always does, that Pope, and said, most homilies are bad these days because the priest talks too long. Homilies got to be 8 minutes or less. And so since I haven't started, just start your clocks now. It'll be 8 minutes from now. But yeah, happy are the poor in spirit. Actually, I'll get sidetracked one more time. I was just studying a little history of the early church, and there was this group called the Ebionites. And they ended up getting into trouble and falling out of favor. But they were like maybe some of the first followers of Jesus. They were like John the Baptist kind of people. They might have known him even. And so they were known as the poor in spirit. And so someone said, I wonder if he was talking about that group of Ebionites who were just poor living out in the desert. And he said, blessed are the Ebionites. But they had, I brought that up because I wanted to tell you, because Lent is coming up and I'm going to preach on John the Baptist probably. And no, is that Advent? It really is Advent, isn't it, where we get the Christmas cookies? How many know that I got a Christmas cookie in the shape of John the Baptist this year? So anyways, they were saying John the Baptist was a vegetarian. Isn't that interesting? And because he was trying to live humble, so he wouldn't eat any meat. He just lived totally humble. So when you're going to fast, what do you fast in the old church? Meat. You don't eat meat. Like we do that on Fridays. We don't eat meat on Friday in Lent. And so John the Baptist was always fasting, so he was a vegetarian. He never ate meat. And so they said, they corrected us. They said, that word grasshopper in Hebrew is just one letter different than like a little pancake. And it was like, he didn't eat grasshoppers, you silly people. He ate pancakes. So now in your minds you can think, John the Baptist is a pancake eater, all right? It was like a honey flower. It was the name for a honey flower that grew in the desert. And he would crush it up and make a cake out of it, and it was sweet, and it was, so can you imagine? John the Baptist, he's a pancake eater. All right. But it was to be humble. So let's talk about that. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of God. They're the ones who are happy. Happy are the poor in spirit. And in the human brain, I was been just looking at this, just trying to overcome all my addictions. How many things are you addicted to going into Lent? Let's just start with your cell phone, okay? And everything on it. And let's start with social media, YouTube or everything on that thing. And then let's just go into food or drink or any other kinds of things. We get so addicted, and that's what makes us unhappy, because what I was watching in this video on addiction, it said in your brain, pain and pleasure are in the same place, and they're on some kind of seesaw your brain's put together. So whenever you get too much pleasure, your brain starts pumping out the pain. And so your psychologists or your doctors, I got to watch it, my doctors over here, whenever you're like depressed or something, what do they always tell you to do? Exercise more. What? Because it causes you pain. It pushes the seesaw down, and when you're doing something like exercise, somehow we end up being happier, because instead of doing just pleasure stuff and the brain making us uncomfortable or miserable, when we do stuff that causes us pain like exercise, our brain pushes that seesaw back and wants to make us feel happy. And so what they told us in this one video was, if you take a cold shower, you'll get whatever that drug is your brain puts out. I don't know what it is. Some kind of serotonin, oxytocin, something, right? If you take a cold shower, your brain will put more of that happy drug into your system than if you did cocaine. And I'm like, wow, that's the Jesus dynamic. Blessed are the poor in spirit. The more pleasure we seek, the more unhappy we become. That's why our country is filled with miserable people, because we have more than anyone ever had. We have more addictions, we have more pleasure, we have more things. We could just watch YouTube all day and see something new every time. We'll never run out of something new to see. And that addictions make us very unhappy in the brain. So blessed are the poor in spirit. Oh, sorry, I have like 7 more good things, but time's up. Pope won't let me preach anymore. All right, forget it. He won't know, right? Blessed are those who mourn. For what? Their sin. Not just anyone who mourns. I've mourned for, like when my mom passed. That didn't make me happy at all. So it's not those who mourn for things that cause us to suffer. It's those who mourn for their sins. They will be comforted. God will forgive their sins and get them in the way of happiness. Blessed are the meek. These people, the lowly ones that live close to the ground, they inherit the land, those are the people who live on the ground, feet on the ground. Those are the ones who are happy. They're not worried about, how do I appear? What's going on? Am I having success? All those worries of the world that just take us right out of this world. Just take us right out of reality, right? All we're doing is obsessing with, my own ego. How am I doing? And this, that, and everything else. And so those who are meek and just humble themselves, they're living right there in that moment and are happy. Happy, I want to do this one just because I did mercy, because God is mercy, okay? God is mercy. But the first words out of Jesus' mouth are peace. And he says, blessed are the peacemakers. Think about that for a minute. Not people who seem to be peaceful. They're not the blessed one. Blessed are the ones who make peace. You ever find yourself in a situation where there's not peace, and you just say, well, that's why I'm here. I'm a maker of peace. I'm going to make peace in my world and in these other people's worlds. I'm going to bring peace into it. I'm going to make peace in my world. Those people who know how to make peace, those are sons of God. Those are just like God, because God's presence, a sure sign of God's presence, is mercy and peace. When you have peace, you know, oh, God's here. This is God's presence right here. And blessed are those who suffer for the sake of justice. Yeah, one last thing. We talk about that pain and pleasure principle. Whenever you see suffering in your world, enter into it. Get into it. Work for justice. Bring about right in your world. And just feel their pain. Feel their suffering and be about that work of making peace and making justice. And that's what makes us happy. That's why we're here. That's meaning in our life. And if you're wondering why you're here, what you're supposed to be doing, what will give meaning to your life, this is it, the Beatitudes. Just every day, live that out, and you'll be like some little kid in Recife, happiest people in the whole world. And when I see the people in our ministries just through a lunch making peace and making justice, just eating with, we don't minister to those people. We eat with them. How cool is that? No one wants to be ministered, but we all want to eat with and be part of that communion. Well, this is our faith, and I tried to make it a little bit fun, but I got sidetracked. But I hope you're getting the idea of why you're here, who you are, and what we're supposed to be doing. And what a wonderful call. What a wonderful homily Jesus gives in the Beatitudes, and what a wonderful faith we have.